Support for this episode comes from First Citizens. You know this bank because they've been around for 30 plus years and they've helped a lot of people. But First Citizens is also a great place to work. It's not just another bank pushing product. They're actually all about investing in their employees, creating a place where you can genuinely build a career and feel like you're part of something bigger. Talking to people I know who work there, First Citizens is the kind of employer that cares about your growth both professionally and personally. So if you're looking for more than just a paycheck and want to be part of a company that values you, check out their careers page at careers.firstcitizensgroup.com. Don't have a background in finance? That's okay. You should still join their talent community because they hire people with a range of skills. You might land a job and find it's exactly the kind of place you've been looking for. Support for this episode also comes from Answer Motors. So I just got back from test driving the Proton X50 and let me tell you, this is something else. This car is like getting behind the wheel of a well-kept secret that's finally hitting the streets of Trinidad. Originally from Malaysia, the X50 has been making waves worldwide, but now, thanks to Answer Motors, it's our turn. The first thing you notice, that turbocharged engine when you start the car, it's got some serious power. But it's not just about speed. The handling on this thing is smooth, making those tight corners a breeze. And it's packed with the latest tech like advanced safety features that make you feel secure no matter where you're headed. So whether you're commuting to work or taking a weekend drive, the Proton X50 makes every trip feel like an adventure. Honestly, if you're in the market for something new, you've got to check this out. Head over to Answer Motors or visit protontt.com and book a test drive. You're going to love it. Support for this episode also comes from Standard Distributors. You know that feeling when you walk into your home and everything just clicks, like it finally feels like you? That's what Standard Distributors is all about, helping you make your space reflect who you are. Whether you're thinking about a sleek LG side-by-side refrigerator for your kitchen or a Samsung soundbar to level up movie nights, they've got what you need. And you just have to visit any Standard branch to see the incredible lineup of furniture and appliances. But it's not just the big stuff. Maybe you're looking for something small, like a new diffuser to freshen up the air or a reliable kettle for your morning tea. They've got that too. And right now, you can snag some of these upgrades with up to 20% off when you shop online. Plus, if you work at Answer McCall, Caribbean Airlines, or you're a member of TAP, there are extra discounts just for you. So if you're ready to make your home feel a little more like home, check out Standard Distributors by going to standardtt.com. That's standard, no S, standardtt.com. It's the perfect time to find those pieces that make your space uniquely yours.
The problems that most of our Caribbean clients are facing, 3 years ago, we all know that problem was, should we go digital? That's no longer the problem. The problem now, 3 years on, is I'm investing in technology. I want to invest in technology. How do I make sure I'm making the right decisions? I've made the decision. How do I make sure this is implemented right? How do I make sure that people are adopting the technology? And how do I make sure I'm in fact getting the return on the investment? Because technology investments are typically not small.
What if you can get insider information about careers, salaries, and company culture directly from industry executives? Information that can give you an edge in your career, like what it's like to lead marketing at Unitrust from someone who led marketing at Unitrust, or a look inside the incredible hiring process at BPTT from their head of talent acquisition, or the specific career path someone took to become head of a department. There's just one issue. Companies don't usually publish that kind of information, and most executives we admire almost never reveal what they did to get to where they are until now. Welcome to Shortlister, a show about work and the workplace for early and mid-career professionals. But unlike other shows about work, we take you inside the minds of executives to explore exactly what they did to level up. And the best part? We'll do our best to tell you what each role pays and what you can do to land one of these jobs. I'm Kerry Peters, and today PwC's Digital Services leader Zia Paton helps us demystify the world of management consulting. So this is a career I've been curious about for a long time, this whole business of management consulting and corporate strategy. You know what I mean, the Michael Clayton types. And if you missed that, go watch the movie. It's a pretty decent film. Anyway, the point is, I've always had a healthy respect for consulting because I am fascinated by how companies work. But I get it, not everyone is a fan. Some people actually think consulting is how companies waste money. A guy named Matthew Stewart even wrote a book about it. It's called The Management Myth. And it's a pretty harsh and incredibly funny critique of management consulting based in part on Matthew's own unlikely story of landing a job as a consultant with zero actual business experience. So in this book, he goes in. He attacks ideas advanced by some of the biggest names in management theory, Peter Drucker, Michael Porter, Tom Peters. He all but discredits their work. And believe it or not, Matthew Stewart is not alone. There are many people out there who think management consulting is all hype. But Zia Paton, my guest on the show today, is not one of them. As a partner at PwC, Zia says management consulting is extremely important work because even large businesses need help to get it right. So help me understand, outside of the frequent travel and the PowerPoint presentations, what do consultants really do? Like, walk me through a day in the life or a week in the life of a consultant at PwC.
Absolutely. So I like to break it down really simply. If I was speaking to my son who's 13, or when he was even younger, describing what we do,
Sure.
is I like to describe ourselves as company doctors. We're there to really unlock and understand what are the symptoms of challenges that they're facing. And those symptoms could come from not clearly defining your strategy. What is the company formed to do? Not clearly understanding and hiring the right people, not organizing those people properly. There could be problems in what tasks you're giving to those people and how those tasks are performed. And that's what we call process.
Right.
And then, of course, what we're seeing in more abundance is the technology that's enabling companies for growth and efficiency. Which technologies do you use? How do you use them?
Right.
We're there to support and help companies make some of those decisions and to get better return on their investment.
So you're clearly implying that consulting covers a broad range of activities. What are the main focus areas at PwC?
One of the things that I'm incredibly proud of in the Caribbean practice, because PwC globally has a very deep and broad range of services that we offer in consulting. It ranges all the way from strategy and transformation, and within transformation goes across people, process, technology. There's operational efficiencies. There's customer-led transformation. So I'm using a lot of consultant jargon here. But when you think about organizations and the problems organizations face, we separate our services to really specialize and support solving that problem. So we have a big cyber practice. So the thing I'm proud about is that PwC in the Caribbean offers a similar breadth of services to our clients, and we work really closely with our global teams.
Okay, excellent. So is PwC only the strategist on these projects, or is PwC operating as both strategist and implementer?
Both. And developing strategy, of course, we are guiding and we are supporting and advising. The most successful projects that we've had are the ones with clients that are truly engaged, truly collaborating and working with us sort of hand in hand as we're delivering work.
So the work is naturally collaborative?
Naturally. A successful assignment is one that is collaborative.
Does that therefore speak to the kind of people that you attract to consulting? People who are sort of maybe not given to deep collaboration, probably aren't suited to the industry?
That's a really good question. And I would say that we do attract a range of talent and skills. And I think that a range of talent and skills can find a good home in PwC. Ultimately, to progress, ultimately to be as effective as you can be, collaboration is going to be key.
Right. So let's go a bit deeper in the PwC context. What does a career ladder for a consultant at PwC look like? You start here and where do you go? What's the progression like?
So you start at either intern or trainee, then you move to associate, senior associate, to manager, senior manager, director, and then partner.
And at each of those stages, like how many years are you guessing it takes to move from one stage to the other?
It is, of course, and the great thing about PwC is that you get to chart your progression to some extent. The level of effort that is put in, the level of responsibility that you take on or that is entrusted to you can increase that progression path. It's typically 2 years. Typically 2 years in each of the positions.
Right.
But we've had instances where it's less than that. We've had instances where it's more than that.
Right. And so I guess it sort of comes down to individual talent, individual commitment, output. And so it's the kind of job, some jobs, this is important, I think, for our listeners, because so many jobs, you feel like you're part of a template where your progression is already sort of decided. Maybe that is true of more public sector jobs, maybe. Is it that in consulting, it really comes down to individual talent and you can surge ahead based on how much work you put in?
Yes. And Kerry, that is the thing that energizes me and excites me about working at PwC. It is sort of a theme park of opportunities. It's a place where I've moved from audit to deals or transactions and now to consulting and now the head of digital services.
Right.
Really because we have such tremendous access across our network and to the industry of professionals as well.
If I were to put on my HR hat here, what is the interview process like at PwC? And sort of go deep with that. Tell me, what kind of questions are you being asked? Is it behavioral sort of questions that you're probing to separate candidates, or is there a take-home assignment? Like, what is the process like?
Yeah, it's a great question. It varies, obviously, depending on the level of staff we're hiring in for.
Sure.
So the higher the grade of staff, the more grueling it is. So at a more senior level, it will involve case studies. It will involve more than one interview. But at the end of the day, we have something called a PwC professional framework, which we're actually right now readapting it and expanding that framework. It really describes the competencies that we look for in any PwC person.
Okay.
Right now, it's across 5 dimensions. Whole leadership.
Right.
How do you lead yourself and others? Business acumen. How do you really understand what you're delivering to clients and how you deliver that? Technology. How do you use technology and embrace technology in delivering your work? How do you build relationships? And the last is global acumen. How are you really understanding broader than the context of a particular local challenge and really bringing the best of our network in the world to a client's challenge?
So I want to disaggregate and sort of go deep there a bit, right? I'm hearing you're looking for readers, people who have a sense of how the world of business works.
Absolutely. One of the things that when I started PwC, and we still have it to date, it dates me whenever I call it the portal, because when I started PwC, it was called the portal. Now it's a database called Connected Source. It's a database where we're sharing materials and sharing leading practice, and there's just a wealth of information at the fingertips of any PwC person within our network to really read and understand leading practice and how to deliver their work. It's a gold mine.
How does someone learn to think strategically?
It's funny, when I did my MBA,
Sure.
we were not allowed to do this strategy paper, the strategy module, until you had finished all modules. And I remember at the time thinking, why? I'd love to knock this one off earlier because the module was smaller.
Sure.
But it made absolute sense, because to be effective at strategic thinking, you really have to have a wide breadth of knowledge. And the persons that we see being really effective at strategy and strategic thinking, they think very broadly and they think about all aspects and all angles of it and bringing in skills and knowledge from all different spheres. So in strategic planning and in strategic thinking, you really want to understand what the HR person's thinking, what's the finance person thinking, what is the technology person thinking, what is happening in the finance markets, what's happening in cyberspace. You want to understand all of that and bring that together to really devise something that is successful.
Let's just jump back to the HR just for a bit. How important is networking to the recruitment process at PwC? Do I have to know someone there to get in?
Absolutely no. So we try to keep as neutral and as fair a process as possible. So all applicants submit their CVs in and it all gets pooled into our HR function. So HC function would review the applications within the framework that they review the application. So everybody goes through the same process. You don't need to know someone, submit your application.
Is there work-life balance for a consultant?
Absolutely. And that's been a question that's been coming up more and more that we see across the globe. And of course, we're seeing it locally as well. That persons struggle with burnout, and a lot of consultants are struggling with burnout because as the world is facing more and more problems, they're turning to consultants to solve more difficult problems. So we are busier than we've ever been.
Sure.
The way I think about work-life balance is that it has to be personalized.
Okay.
And I encourage my team members to choose what works for them. I chose a particular path because I'm energized by a lot of work, and my ability to execute a lot of work would be different from someone else.
Sure.
My personal responsibilities, my level of support is all different.
Is the culture at PwC supporting those kinds of decisions?
I have always felt, and I would trust that my team members feel the same, always felt supported.
Sure.
I have one son, as I mentioned, and throughout my maternity leave, even coming back out to work, I felt incredibly supported to take work at the pace that I wanted. I chose to continue to drive at a particular pace because it suited my lifestyle. As I mentioned, I did have a lot of support at home as well. So it worked for me.
Right. How did PwC support its employees during the pandemic?
We took an extremely human-led approach. We had a significant amount of engagement. So all of our employees were immediately sort of, enabled and allowed to work from home. We kept the work from home policy in place, and it still is in place. In Trinidad, we've only just recently encouraged persons to come back in for anchor days, specific days in office, because they are important.
Sure.
But throughout the pandemic, we spent a lot of time understanding individual circumstances and accommodating flexibility in how we executed work and how we supported clients, and staying really close to our team members throughout the entire process.
Sounds like a good place to work.
Yes.
So someone is trying to get into consulting at PwC. What qualities alert you almost immediately that someone is not a fit for consulting?
You're not a fit for consulting if you need tasks clearly defined and spelled out.
Yeah.
Not a good fit.
Yeah, that kind of describes many jobs.
It does. It does. What we do in consulting requires a lot of, as I mentioned, accessing many data points, independent thinking, collaboration, creation that's really constantly rooted in doing things better each and every time.
And a sort of constantly synthesizing information
Correct.
from different places.
Correct.
Different streams of information.
And the wonderful thing about PwC is that all that information is available to you easily.
Okay.
So if you choose a path of asking for it to be very carefully spelled, of course, there is guidance. Of course, we have ways of doing things. We have frameworks that we follow. But exactly how you go about completing and solving a problem for a client requires a lot of some design thinking and some creativity with that client, co-development to really break barriers and develop something and solve something in a really creative way.
Okay, so zoom out a bit for me. How has consulting changed over the years in the time that you've been in the business?
Fundamentals are still the same. I look back at frameworks that were developed 20 years ago or more.
Right.
When I, started dabbling in consulting. And some of the fundamentals are there. What has changed significantly in consulting and for companies is that for companies to be successful, the technology dimension is significant. The technology dimension has changed the way that businesses can grow and perform significantly. That wasn't around and built into frameworks 20 years ago. And the other thing is the ecosystems, which of course is enabled by technology.
What do you mean by ecosystems?
The companies can't succeed on their own. And more, as we think about cost effectiveness, as you think about synergies, as you think about how do you continue to grow and expand and scale, companies are recognizing that alliances, partnerships, acquisitions are all fundamental towards building that scale and improving.
Does this business of ecosystem also speak to the technology framework?
It absolutely is. And because technology, so if you just think about social media, has made us so connected that it's driving. So one of the services I mentioned, customer-led transformation. Customer-led transformation is really coming out of the fact that when businesses think about what they're delivering and how they succeed, it has to be with the lens of what are you trying to deliver for your customer. You may have one particular product or service, but if you really think about what the customer's trying to solve in their lives, you might recognize that your service could be enhanced by a partnership with someone else.
Okay, let's dive into your specialty area, digital transformation. Help me get a more complete picture. What does the digital services leader at PwC do in terms of digital transformation?
So I'll make one distinction.
Sure.
The area that I lead is services to clients. We do have a partner that leads transformation within PwC.
Which is a separate area.
Which is a separate area and significant. PwC over the past few decades and more recently last 5 to 7 years have gone through significant transformation in the tools that enable us in delivering our services to our clients and the tools that we are also the alliances that we work with software vendors in delivering services to clients as well.
Right.
So internal and external partnerships. So for example, we use Salesforce as one of our key databases for managing our CRM.
Okay, so digital services speak to what exactly?
Right. So the external side of things. So the part that I'm leading and working with partners across our region and network is what are the problems that our clients are facing in this technology accelerated era? The problems that most of our Caribbean clients are facing. 3 years ago, we all know that problem was, should we go digital? That's no longer the problem. The problem now, 3 years on, is I'm investing in technology. I want to invest in technology. How do I make sure I'm making the right decisions? I've made the decision. How do I make sure this is implemented right? How do I make sure that people are adopting the technology? And how do I make sure I'm in fact getting the return on the investment? Because technology investments are typically not small.
So is PwC informing what solution a client goes with, one software versus the other thing? Is it that granular?
Yes. And one of the things, we are technology agnostic. So while, yes, we have alliances, ultimately, PwC is technology agnostic. And it comes back to that mantra I shared with you about solving a problem. So the approach that we take when we think about a digital transformation is what's the business problem that you're actually trying to solve? What's the strategy that you're trying to achieve? And that business problem you're trying to solve, then we bring the technology in.
Agnostic because at the end of the day, you're only interested in doing what serves the client best. Yeah?
Correct. And it may mean, depending on what their budget is, that we work our best with them to optimize what they currently have, when perhaps an investment in something new might be a better choice. If their budgets don't allow for it, we work with them with optimization. So it's a myriad of services that we offer.
How big is your team? And what skills do people on your team have?
The team in the Caribbean in consulting, it's 22 persons. The team across the Caribbean in consulting, did I say Caribbean before? I meant Trinidad. In Trinidad, it's 22. Across the Caribbean, it is probably 60.
This is digital services or?
That's a great question. Because, and the reason why it's not that clear is if you think about myself, I'm the digital services leader. I'm not a technical digital resource.
Okay.
I deliver work across the full gamut of consulting, from strategy through to implementation, supporting workforce and people and process challenges and transformation and digital as well. And the reason I think that I'm effective at doing that is because of the approach I shared before. If you lead with technology, you'll probably fail. You have to lead with the business. You have to lead with strategy, what you're trying to accomplish. And then we bring in specialists. So if you're talking about specialists, so we have been hiring recently, and that's one of the roles that I take in external digital, is what are those deep technical specialists that we want on board?
Right.
The model we've used and still continue to use is that we leverage deep technical experts in our wider network, global network. We're working with persons all across the world.
Tell me specifically what areas are we talking? I mean, I want to hear, are we talking AI and machine learning? And
Sure. So right now in the Caribbean, the work that we're primarily supporting clients with, and because it depends on the maturity of the market.
Sure.
The work we're primarily doing is implementations of software. Selection of software and implementation of software. So we are supporting them with that implementation. Sometimes the software is a PwC software, and in many instances it's not. So we're working with them, with their vendor, with implementation and ensuring that implementation aligns with business needs.
Software to do what? Software for?
Many different things. It could be an end-to-end solution for the entire enterprise. It could be a finance solution, an HR solution, etc. Any type of software solution that's needed in the business. The other type of digital services we offer is cybersecurity. So that's a significant service area that our team is delivering on. I would say we have about 3 deep technical experts in cyber, but a wider team of more like 6 to 7 persons delivering cyber work. And then we tap into the deeper network for deeper expertise. You mentioned AI, and where we are in Trinidad and Tobago, and the conversations at least that I'm having with clients, is that AI is fundamental to helping to drive efficiencies and to improve work for people. I think understanding AI and understanding where it fits in your business is something that executives need to have on the table right now.
Are you saying that Caribbean business owners and business leaders are thinking about AI and thinking about AI implementation at local companies?
Yes, thanks to ChatGPT, which made AI very accessible, which makes AI very accessible to every person. It has been something that has opened the world of artificial intelligence to the average person, right? And artificial intelligence has always been a business solution that many industries have been using. The financial services sector have been using AI for decades when they're looking at investment portfolios. However, generative AI, which is newer type of technology, which is where we see ChatGPT, generative AI and the solutions associated with generative AI is something that we are seeing organizations understanding, how do I build something that helps to give me faster answers to my business problems and to help my people with the problems that they are facing and in executing their work.
Do you have an example of a Caribbean business leader probing or asking PwC, engaging PwC on an AI question, and specifically what? What are they thinking about now in terms of AI?
So for the purposes of not naming the client, but coming out of a strategy session with a client in the financial services sector, the client is thinking about how do we, at the very start of this AI adoption journey, determine where AI is best suited in our business towards enabling better execution. So the conversation with them is, where should AI fit in our business? And then once we've defined where it could fit, what's the framework by which we will continue to develop and enable AI in the business? And then where do we take little pilots and start rolling it out?
That's very interesting.
Yes.
Is this conversation happening more in banking and finance as opposed to maybe oil and gas, as opposed to other industries? In other words, are some sectors leading the AI conversation?
We've had the conversation in 2 places. Yes, more if we take sector-wide, financial services. But then if we take function, we are finding CFOs who are being put under more and more pressure by their businesses, wanting to build better predictive models on forecasting revenues and forecasting opportunities for the business. So it is somewhat, I guess, related to financial services because ultimately they're looking for returns as well. But we're seeing CFOs asking the question about how do they better leverage AI in building those predictive models.
I get the impression, based on what you've said over the last few minutes about AI and cybersecurity and some other technologies, emerging technologies, that there's an impact on careers and what local professionals need to be thinking about. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Hopefully I'm interpreting your question correctly. I think to have a fulfilling career, and maybe I'm being narrow in thinking it's a fulfilling career in consulting, but if I had to give my son advice on his career, it's to be adaptable. The world is changing at an incredibly fast pace. And if you choose a career that you think you're just going to keep doing that for a number of years, you'll quickly find yourself, 1, not adding value, unfulfilled, and stagnating.
Wow. Seems a bit bold.
Bold.
Yeah, serious.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
I'm really serious because when I think about the transformations that companies have to drive, and if I draw some statistics, when we did a survey earlier this year, 1/3 of CEOs and 1/3 of employees, independent surveys done, and the data was that 1/3 of CEOs and 1/3 of employees, similar statistic, all thought that their businesses were not viable. Within 10 years, their businesses will not be viable. And what that means is that there is a need for transformation. There is a need to transform the business in order for it to survive and sustain. And for a business to transform, the people within that business has to transform. Yes, you invest in technology to enable. Yes, you improve processes, but ultimately, the people that are within that organization have to change and adapt as well.
So the call to action is to individuals.
Absolutely. And to embrace, when you think about things like AI, and positively, actually, the surveys that we've done, we're seeing that people are embracing AI. They're not necessarily seeing AI as something that would replace their jobs in 54% of employees at least. It's embracing the change and really thinking about what does this mean for me instead of waiting for it to be told and feel like it's being imposed on you. Know that the change is coming. Know that the change is needed and think about how do I adapt.
So am I right in saying that you are quite possibly steering your own son away from some traditional programs of study?
No, I'm steering him to a mindset that is adaptable. And it's what I think is widely known as sort of your growth mindset. It's a mindset that really being open to the world around you and being open to solving those problems in a meaningful way. And again, not to be scary, but sometimes when you think about the polycrisis we're in, when you think about the polarization, when you think about the climate change alone, when you think about some of the social inequities that we're noticing, our global leader, Blair Shepherd, speaks a lot about this, the megatrends and the polycrisis. Unfortunately, what we're leaving for the generations ahead of us, and we are doing our best, the older generations, to really make a difference. Because unless we change the way that we do things, and unless we keep adapting, we might leave something that's not what we want for our children.
So let's be real for a second. You know how everyone's talking about the importance of skills in today's job market? Well, they're not wrong. I don't have a degree, and honestly, I'm doing just fine because I understand skills are where it's at. In fact, I recently read an article in the Wall Street Journal about Gen Z being the new toolkit generation. Young people taking jobs as plumbers and electricians and making serious money, no degree. That's why I'm excited about NESC Technical Institute. They've got a new intake happening right now, and it's all about learning real hands-on skills. Stuff like automotive services, drilling rig operations, welding, which is especially useful if you want to work in the energy sector, or train to be an electrician or an air-conditioned tech because those skills always pay. There are even courses in IT networking and industrial fabrication, so check them out because they've got a program for you. And now's the time. NESC Technical Institute could be your best path to a new career. Check out their programs and getting on the action. Head over to nesc.edu.tt. That's nesc.edu.tt and see what's up, and maybe even apply for their new intake. Speak to the Trinidad and Tobago context. What skills are in highest demand? What should people be studying or training for?
Excellent question. I would say some of the fundamentals still remain. In PwC, we consistently, as you know, mentioned my qualifications earlier. I'm ACCA and I'm MBA. And obviously biased by saying that a foundation in accounting, for example, and ACCA in particular, when you do ACCA, the modules aren't just accounting. They're tax, there's strategy, there's some marketing in there. It really helps an accountant to really be a rounded advisor to the business and rooted in understanding the implications on the numbers. So I'd say that there are a lot of traditional skills and qualifications that the educators, the ACCAs, the universities, they're all adapting their training courses to where we are in the world today.
Sure.
So degrees in accountancy, degrees in finance, degrees in economics, degrees in data science, degrees in computer science, and deep digital and cloud experts, all of these are all still relevant.
Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity, absolutely. All of them are relevant. The fundamental ones and the digital specialist skills as well.
What's your perspective on reskilling and retooling the local workforce? Something we can achieve?
Yes, with hard work. And our work is happening. It is publicly known that PwC is supporting the civil service with the job evaluation exercise that is revising the job descriptions of our civil servants. That really lays the foundation for the tasks that they perform and how they perform their work. And that will then integrate with the digital transformation as being driven in the public sector. So that reskilling, the work to do that, adapting of where the civil service and how the civil service and the public service at large, and then services across the private sector as well, that deep work in understanding what people do, how does that align to my strategy, what are the skills that we need. That's a significant amount of work that we're currently doing across both public and private sector.
So do you think we're making the right policy decisions at the government level? And I sort of want your opinion on this. Education just got the largest slice of the budget again. Do you think the policy positions and decisions we're making will get us to where we need to be in terms of reskilling for the future?
I'd say that the pace of change, particularly for somebody, and this is not Zia PwC, this is Zia me personally,
Sure.
always likes to see things done faster than they happen in real life.
Yeah.
But as a consultant, seeing the bigger picture, we do appreciate that there are many different moving parts. I would like to see a faster pace and more people coming to the table and supporting that action.
Right.
And that almost requires everyone and less of the bystanders, less of those looking on and thinking, why isn't it happening faster? But everyone thinking, well, what part can I play? And how can we get this done?
Sure.
Of course, I agree with you. I know you're thinking, Zia didn't answer my question, because policy helps to get those bystanders acting and get them all aligned, because there's a clear policy for us all to be aligned. And I think there is no shortage of plans and policies. Yes, our legislative framework is continuing to adapt, but it's about action. And I think we really need to dig deep in terms of the capacity that we have to move things forward and solutioning and constantly moving forward.
Understood. You mentioned your background with ACCA and having an MBA. Does someone with a background in the arts have a place in consulting? And I ask that because I know I've read of, well, one, I think there's no shortage of entrepreneurs outside of Trinidad and Tobago who come from the arts or come from creative backgrounds, and they've built phenomenal things, right, from a technology standpoint. Are we facilitating that kind of pivot in Trinidad?
In Trinidad, I would say yes, at a slower pace and in more pockets than I see it happening globally. We work with design thinking teams and building design thinking skills within consulting. And by design thinking, you'd probably know, but for those listening, design thinking really is just a way of how do you unlock and think about a problem. So a client comes to you with a problem, but it's not sitting and thinking about it in a very academic way, but it's that creative thinking, that artistic thinking that really helps to unlock a problem in a better way and foster the collaboration that you might need in teams. So that design thinking skill, I would say, yes, that aligns very well to the artistic and the more creative thinkers.
Are we at the point where Caribbean businesses need a digital leader role inside of the organization? How would you define that role?
Yes, they do. And we are seeing it in two parts. There's the run the business type digital role, and then there is change the business digital role.
Oh, I like that.
And they both are essential.
Yeah.
Both are absolutely essential, but they're both distinct. It's two roles. If you ask one person to do that role, it's too much. And it's different skills. It is actually different skills.
I saw Republic just announced that they had appointed a new digital transformation leader, I think. I get the impression it's a new title for the traditional chief information officer.
That sounds to me like a change the business role, digital transformation, because then in thinking about how you're transforming the business. Because once you transform the business and think about how you're driving digital innovation and use of digital technologies, both for your customer and internally, then the run the business typical CIO, CTO type position is making sure that that is in fact happening.
So the CIO and the CTO are both run the business positions.
Right.
There's room for this new position of a
changing the business. That mindset on focusing on changing the business. And how do you drive that change? Because what a lot of companies are struggling with, and a one poll surveys that we did, is that 88% of companies are saying that one of their biggest challenges with transformation is getting that technology transformation really implemented in a way that you're seeing it drive the change that you want it to drive. So a business case might be developed to say, yes, we need technology for this, and it is the right decision. But exactly how do you implement that in the business to get that return really requires deep focus. And that's where the digital transformation person and change the business comes in.
It does sound like a mandate for the CEO, the chief executive. Is it that we need CEOs having a new kind of skill in terms of digital change for the organization?
PwC, in recognizing the poly crisis, recognizing that leaders are under a lot more pressure to really respond to a lot of these changes, recognize that executives need to have a breadth of knowledge.
Right.
We've launched a program called your Transformative Leader Program, Leaders Solving for Tomorrow, where we're exposing leaders at our clients and internally to a program that helps them to get an understanding of many different things, not just technology, all different aspects of business and the poly crisis, and what does that mean for your business. So yes, CEOs do need to understand technology implications, do need to understand finance implications, HR implications. They do need to have that wider breadth of skills.
Right, which is something you're not seeing happening at the rate it needs to be happening. If you sort of look at the Caribbean space.
The companies that we've been interacting with, you do see investment in their leaders.
Okay.
With technology moving at such a rapid pace,
yeah,
there's a risk that the people element is also changing at a rapid pace. How people work, how they want to work, how they integrate with technology is far more complex and has changed very fundamentally from the way we worked, say, 20 years ago. And while organizations are grappling with what technologies do I implement and how do I implement technologies to tap into new markets and solve business problems, at the same time, companies are, how do I make sure that my people are keeping pace with this? How do I make sure that I'm providing an environment that they want to work in and how they want to work? It is two really big challenges that organizations are facing right now that we're seeing companies in the Caribbean focused on.
That's a good place for me to ask. There's a perspective that remote work is the future of work. How do you see it?
I think that much like my answer on work-life balance, there's some fundamentals to work-life balance. Of course, getting enough sleep is fundamentally important. I think it's 2 to 4% of human beings can actually survive with less than 4 hours sleep a night. But generally, we all need a certain amount of sleep.
Right.
Similarly, we generally need a certain amount of engagement in person. Depending on the type of work you do, there might be a need for a little bit more of it or a little bit less of it.
Okay.
But there is a need for it. As the anchor days that I talk about, in encouraging our teams to come back and to be in office and interact, what we observed is the persons came back and they sat at their computers and doing the same thing they would do at home, which is dial each other in, and then they're not engaging. Coming out of the pandemic and coming out of the hybrid work, that collaboration, the creative thinking, the engaging and connecting deeply with your colleagues through those anchor days, which meetings require brainstorm, require in-person walking meeting.
Right.
And really would help us to unlock something better. I'm challenging my team to not think about anchor days as a day that you're forced to come in office, but it's a day to truly connect. And think about how you want to connect. It could be a walking coffee that you do for 2 hours with your colleague, really brainstorming something.
Yeah, something about that human-to-human interaction.
Right. So I think some of that is absolutely fundamental. And yes, we have to work with technology. The traffic situation in Trinidad and Tobago is bad. We appreciate that. And we appreciate that different people have different circumstances in terms of level of support and childcare, etc. So it brings a lot of work-life balance with the hybrid work. But to really be effective in your careers, there's a certain fundamental amount of connection and collaboration in person that is needed.
How do you win over clients to the idea of corporate strategy when those clients may be thinking, I don't need to take advice from some young person with no experience but an MBA?
Well, I'll unpack a couple of things there.
Sure.
What businesses will find, what we're finding more and more, is that you need to listen to the young people more. The young people have a perspective about how the world is changing that the older generations don't necessarily have that perspective. We have a tremendous amount of experience and perspective, but the need for that collaboration between the different generations in solving a problem has become even more important. So I'd say, one, you want to listen to young people. The second thing I'd say is that we have this conversation. When I started consulting, I was perhaps the same in terms of a skeptic of, you see massive binders of reports and 5-10 years on, nothing changed at the client.
Right.
And I thought that's almost create such a deep emotive response for me in that you feel that your work is wasted.
Right.
And in all of our conversations with clients and the clients that we like working with are the ones that we co-create something that is truly going to make a difference. And if at any point in time, as we are delivering work, you're not seeing that, we stop and we take stock. How can we make sure that this is something that is truly making a difference and truly going to be something that can drive action?
Where have you made a difference? What is a project that you're particularly proud of that you're maybe at liberty to give me some details about?
I think there are many examples, which is why I continue doing what I'm doing and I love doing what we do, is that when we think about wider society and we think about the societal problems that we have, businesses and the role of businesses, actually businesses in a recent survey are more trusted than governments. And businesses are being called on by employees to get even more deeply aligned with values and provide even more of a service to employees than just your basic 8-to-4 job. They want to know, what are we doing about the environment? What are we doing about people issues and diversity, etc.? So businesses are evolving to solving societal issues and societal problems. When they solve problems internally, so when we work on an assignment that really redefines what somebody comes to work to do every day and how they then support that strategy and execution, I see that as a direct link to how that business contributes to wider society.
Right.
And as they implement that and as we support them in implementing that, there's a lot of fulfillment. A lot of the work that we do, we see them in the headlines. We see them in the newspapers in terms of progress an organization's making. One recent example is working with a client and finding that through a reorganization, there's a lot of capacity now within the organization for people to redefine what they do and to do something even more meaningful.
Right.
So
it's about creating value beyond the balance sheet.
Absolutely. I don't want people to think that it always comes down to dollars.
Sure.
But where those dollars are coming from and how we think about generating value in terms of dollars, we are widening that lens. You need to widen that lens. The whole ESG space is absolutely fundamental in really thinking not just how do you create sustainable revenue, and people want to be associated with companies and create sustainable revenue through deeper connections. So yes, it is beyond the balance sheet.
Yeah.
But it ultimately hits the balance sheet in a positive way by doing broader societal gains.
Understood. Consulting is a high trust business. You guys have access to all kinds of privileged information. How do you earn and keep trust?
It's so ingrained in every single thing that we do, right? So from fundamental policies around code of conduct to who we onboard and how we do performance reviews, what behaviors we encourage or don't encourage. And of course, a number of formal mechanisms for technology in terms of how you can share data, what data you share, that being monitored and flagged if it is shared outside of a means that is against company policy, and that is extremely closely monitored. We have a significant investment in guarding against cybersecurity risks as well internally. So I would say that it is truly at the heart of every single thing that we do. If you listen to our global CEO and cascade that message all the way down to any team member within PwC, you'd hear a consistent message of what is true to us, and that is continuously building trust.
If you were to bring it down to one thing that you did to achieve this position of digital services leader at PwC, what would you say is that one thing?
Funny, we just talked about trust. It would be trusting in myself and others. I've seen many people struggle in their careers because they feel that perhaps they're not advancing as fast as they'd like, or they're being overlooked, or they are not necessarily figuring out something fast enough that they'd like to figure out faster. And I say trust in yourself that you'll get there. Keep at it with the right intentions. The intentions of not just your success, but the success of others and the success of the wider organization. And you need to trust your leaders. If you don't trust your leaders, you can't succeed either. So trust the people that are also helping you chart your career.
Let's keep on that track of how you do your work. Is there a favorite framework or hack that you come back to every time?
I almost feel like I go into a very creative mode when a client describes a problem and I sit with the team and we're brainstorming, how do we solve this problem? Because in consulting, you can't use the same, what we call our engagement letter or scope. Same scope does not apply to another client. You really need to sit and think, what did I hear them say? And I think the thing that I go back to is deeply listening. Listen deeply. And if you didn't quite understand, ask and understand, truly listen and understand.
Right. I like that. What is it about PwC's culture that made you want to stay at this firm?
Everybody's, at least the network that I maintain, everybody just wants to solve clients' problems and do the best that they can. And we help each other in doing that.
Okay. Who helped you? Who was your mentor? Any professional mentors?
I have had so many people that have helped me along the way, so many people that I look up to and admire. And when I first got into PwC, the head of the firm at the time, Peter Gantum, he was looking for a trainee to prepare a presentation for him. He was heading off to Houston in a couple of months to present at an oil and gas conference.
Right.
And he's like, give me any bright trainee and let them help me with my slide deck. And from working with him on that presentation, he assigned me to all his oil and gas jobs and really took a hands-on approach and giving feedback and encouraging me along the way. I've had so many examples of the Peter Gantums and others throughout my career, really challenging you, presenting opportunities. But the thing in PwC, and I think in life, is that an opportunity is only as good as the effort that you put into it. So when people present an opportunity to you, because I pour into opportunities, I pour into them, you give it as much effort as you can, and they see that it's a behavior that they then think, okay, I'll give you another opportunity and see how much you pour into it. So it really is, I think, a lot of people presenting opportunities throughout my career and me really taking those on.
Let's stay with that Zia Paton wisdom. What is one lesson that your job taught you that you think everyone should learn?
That there will be days where you feel like you are on top of a cloud and it is a fabulous day. You love what you're doing and you're like, yes, this is a great day. There will be days where you feel like you want to pack your bags up and walk away. There are most days where you come in and things are moving. They're moving along well. I think it's important to know that no matter what career you choose, consulting or anything, entrepreneurship, any career that you choose, there'll be great days and there'll be not great days. But ultimately, you have to figure out what drives you. Where do you feel energized? Where do you feel you're adding value? And can you keep doing that in the job that you're in? Can you keep doing that? Can you keep thriving? And not look at obstacles, not look at bad days as the only part of the picture.
Wow, yeah.
Step back and look at the bigger picture.
Let's end with the money, i.e. compensation. How much does a consultant make?
A consultant, so we talked about the hierarchy of coming in as an intern, and our interns potentially make what is minimum wage in whichever territory they're hired into, because you're coming in with basic or no qualifications. The great thing about PwC, and I mentioned, is that you can move as fast as the effort you put in. And we do have salary bands across each of the positions. And beyond partner, the partners are essentially entrepreneurs. It's the profitability of the business. How well do you run the business? How profitable do you make it? The progression, I would say, in PwC is potentially faster than you would find in industry. So you'd be slotting into a position in industry and the opportunities to move may be harder if somebody else is in the position that you need to get to and they're there for life. In PwC, there's no set number of senior associates, no set number of managers necessarily. As the business grows, we can grow those positions. I'm not answering your question, am I? Sorry, Gary.
Sure. That's
yeah.
Fine. All right. Zia, where can people follow you? Where are you publishing your thoughts online?
I don't do enough of it. I do publish my thoughts, of course, with my clients constantly. And when you're not seeing me on social media, that is what I'm doing. It really is engaging deeply with my clients. But I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the place that I engage from a professional standpoint the most.
Thank you, Zia. This was fun.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, that's our show today. Shortlisted is hosted and produced by me, Kerry Peters, and mixed and edited by Ross Burns. If you found this episode useful, please share it with your colleagues and invite them to subscribe to our newsletter at shortlister.co. That's shortlisthr.co. I guarantee it's the one email you want to read if you work in corporate. So sign up now, and don't forget to also rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Oh, and I want to ask you to support our journalism by reaching out with information you think might be valuable to our audience. We're back soon with another episode.